We all know that we should do more to help with recycling. Human beings generate a lot of waste products, and some of those products can be harmful to the environment if they're left to rot or buried in landfills. Fortunately, the world is full of resourceful people who keep coming up with new and inventive ways to turn waste into wonder, as you're about to see in this video. Landfills are usually a terrible way to deal with trash and waste, but not if you do them the way Singapore has with its Pulau Semakau Island. This is the first ecological landfill in the world. It's been in operation for 20 years and is capable of holding up to 200 million square feet of trash. That should account for all the waste that Singapore generates for the next 20 years. The process is simple. Singapore incinerates all of its waste, and then the resultant ash is topped with soil so that plants can grow on it. That's why insects and birds have turned it into their permanent home. A wastewater treatment plant on site makes sure that no polluted water escapes into the sea. This trash island is now Singapore's #1 birdwatching hotspot. Batteries are notoriously hard to recycle. Just one standard AA battery can pollute 400 liters of water if it's thrown into the sea. So even though it's difficult, we have to find a way to do it. The first battery recycling plant in Belarus is showing everybody the way. The batteries are cut and then crushed, breaking them down into their component elements. Around 40% of the average battery is metal, but it's also possible to extract other materials, such as zinc, potassium, and graphite from them, all of which is then sent to factories to be used to create something new. The company in charge of the recycling soon hopes to be able to process up to 300 tons of discarded batteries every year. In the meantime, we should all start using rechargeable batteries where possible. People usually believe that nuclear energy is dangerous and that nuclear waste can be deadly. That can be the case, but not if you're able to turn that waste into glass. At Rutgers University in New Jersey, USA, researchers have demonstrated that they can not only turn the waste into glass, they can also make ceramics with it. The dangerous nuclear byproduct iodine-129 doesn't naturally break down for over 15 million years. So ensuring safe disposal of the toxic element is vital. The method is going to be attempted at the Hanford plant in Washington, which has created over 56 million gallons of radioactive nuclear waste. It's hoped that all of that waste will become glass by 2023 at the latest, and we'll all be safer for it. Nobody likes roadworks, and nobody likes waste plastics. But India has found a way to combine the two things together into something everybody can get on board with: plastic roads. Not only is this a great use of unneeded plastic, but it results in roads which are cheaper to build and last longer than asphalt. The Tamil Nadu district in the south of India has so far built over 600 miles of plastic roads, using up more than 1,500 tons of waste plastic in the process. The plastic is shredded and then mixed with traditional tar to create the new surface. Since November 2016, the government has ordered that all new roadworks in the country have to be performed using plastic waste. Isn't this what everybody should be doing? A nuclear submarine at the end of its service life is a big health hazard. It's rusty, it's full of dangerous materials, and it's too dangerous to leave out in the water. At the cost of over $2 billion, Russia is in the process of decommissioning its old nuclear subs and reusing the materials to build something new, even if that something new turns out to be another submarine. The port city of Vladivostok has been chosen for the decommissioning work, and these dramatic pictures give you a sense of the scale of these once proud vessels. Each submarine is over 350 feet long. By the end of 2020, all 201 submarines that were sent here for recycling will have been dealt with. The liquid metal reactors will be safely disposed of, and all of the rusted metal will become shiny and new once more. As we get better at dealing with micro and nanotechnology, we're becoming more open to the idea that good things really do sometimes come in small packages. Just ask the team of scientists in Sevastopol who've worked out how to safely dispose of dangerous ammunition with microbes. The researchers have cultivated a purpose-bred species of microorganisms capable of breaking down RDX, TNT, and aluminum. The unwanted ammunition is delicately dropped into a pool of water, and the bacteria crack it open themselves and feed on the contents. 15 days later, it's all gone, with no harmful waste products left over. The resultant material is a little like compost and can be processed into fertilizer. One day, the scientists hope they'll be able to use a very similar process on land and clean up minefields. You don't need to be a genius scientist to come up with a smart way of recycling waste. Any concerned citizen with a few key skills can do it. Engineer John Collette of Baltimore, USA is one such example. He's now known better as Mr. Trash Wheel, the man behind the big recycling wheel that sits on Jones Fall River in his home city. John had watched the river slowly become polluted over many years. Trash flows into the river from 40 square miles of water around it. But by carefully mapping out the current of the river to see where most of the trash gathered, he's been able to filter out hundreds of tons of waste. His wheel is just a modified water wheel powered by solar panels. As it turns out, it collects trash from the river and drops it straight into a dumpster. So far, he's fished out over 7 million cigarette ends, 250,000 plastic bottles, and one confused python. Collette now hopes to bring his invention to other parts of the world. Would you like one near you? Discarded chewing gum is disgusting. It sticks to your shoes, you find it underneath seats on public transport, and it can even get in your hair. It also sticks fast to the sidewalk and stays there for years. British design student Anna Bullis has had enough of it, and she's come up with a way to solve the problem. It's taken her 8 months working in the chemistry lab at the University of Brighton, and then 3 years at the Polymers Department of London's Metropolitan University. But she's finally come up with a way to recycle it. The resultant product is a new polymer-like material she's called GumTech. The first thing she built with it is a bin for people to put chewing gum into. Her company collects the bins when they're full and takes the gum back to the factory for processing. Every full bin of gum creates 3 more bins. They're now becoming a common sight across the UK. But Anna is now also making cups, food packaging, and even guitar picks out of her new creation. Japan is already ahead of most of the world when it comes to recycling, and that's because they take their responsibilities so seriously. Japanese people have a philosophy they refer to as motenai, the idea of not throwing anything away unless they're certain it can have no further use. The island nation generates over 50 million tons of waste each year, and with so little space to dispose of it in, clever solutions are required. Citizens of Japan are required to sort their waste into 4 categories: glass, paper, plastic, and bulky. Officials check each of the specifically designated bins carefully, and if you haven't sorted your trash properly, it won't be picked up. You must also pay a small fee for the collection and recycling of larger items. If you try to throw them out without paying, you'll be fined hundreds of dollars. All commonly bought household items in Japan come with a label, which tells buyers which waste category they belong to. Any non-recyclable waste is incinerated with a special plasma stream, which can turn 30 tons of trash into 6 tons of ash. The process generates electricity, which is then used to power the neighborhood around it. In total, 90% of all waste in Japan is now recycled, and that figure rises higher every year. Big solutions start with big ideas, so we have to salute Shai Pinzuski, CEO of REN Waste. He believes his treatment plant in Israel is capable of recycling any kind of waste in the world. Not only that, he believes he can turn all of the waste into either new materials or electricity. No matter what kind of waste REN is presented with, whether it's raw sewage or office trash like old computers, Pinzuski believes he can break it all down to its core elements and reshape it. He even says he can turn some forms of waste into water. Instead of incinerating waste, his system shreds it, runs it through powerful magnetic chambers, oxidized with biochemicals, and then sent to a pyrolysis plant. Amazingly, processing 20,000 tons of waste generates 2,000 megawatts of electricity. Ever wonder where old ships go to die? Well, in most cases, it's Bangladesh, where breaking down old boats is a major industry. Over 40 miles of coastline in Bangladesh are given over to shipbreakers' yards, which deal with the disposal of more than 90% of the world's old ships when they're no longer required. Here, disposal work is carried out manually. That means getting up close and personal with the wrecked boats, and working with hammers, grinders, and blowtorches until the steel and other materials are broken down into tiny pieces that can be sold to local construction firms. The average transport vessel weighs around 40,000 tons and will take a team of 50 workers 3 months to completely dismantle. The work is dangerous and the pay is low. Most people employed here earn $300 per month or less and spend half of that on food and housing. The way we usually demolish buildings leaves a lot to be desired. Dust, ash, and rock go flying everywhere, and half the area around the demolition site gets carpeted with dust and smoke. The Japanese think there's a better way. They use futuristic cranes to take buildings apart floor by floor, and they generate electricity while they're doing it. The method was used in the Grand Prince Hotel in Akasaka, as we can see here. The system being used for the tidy and environmentally conscious demolition is called the ecological reproduction system. The interior of the building is completely stripped, and then beams and concrete are removed with the giant cranes, which create electricity as they move. That electricity is then used to power the rest of the demolition works, reducing carbon emissions by over 80%. Taisei Corp, the company behind the work, says that dust levels are reduced almost to zero, and it makes far less noise pollution too. Nobody wants to talk about the topic of human waste, but if we're capable of turning it into water so clean that billionaire Bill Gates is willing to drink it, we should probably force ourselves to have the conversation. This near miracle is possible thanks to something called the omniprocessor system, invented by Peter Janicki. The system starts by boiling the waste, which separates off water vapor. The remaining solids are then burnt, generating steam which drives a small engine, thus powering the system's processor. The water vapor then condenses back into liquid, goes through a filter, and is clean and safe to drink. Gates is funding the whole omniprocessor project, which is primarily expected to be put into use in developing countries where people don't currently have safe access to water. If Bangladesh is the global center for disposing of old ships, then the equivalent place for disposing of old electronics is China. The Guyu region is a particular focus, taking shipments of electronic waste from across the world. Everything that arrives here is physically taken apart by hand, broken down to the smallest of its components. Any remaining wiring is then sent to a specialist, who strips away the copper and melts the lead away from the circuit boards. All of these materials are then sold and reused. The current process is far from perfect. For example, anything that can't be stripped is often burnt, emitting toxic gases into the atmosphere. Guyu is said to stink of burning rubber and plastic. The wages are low, the materials the workers are stripping apart with their bare hands are toxic, and the discarded materials seep into the soil and water. This is one form of recycling that needs improvement. As if making a mess of the Earth wasn't bad enough, we're now creating a trash problem in outer space. There's all sorts of old space junk floating around in orbit, ranging from pieces of old rocket launches to tools dropped by accident by astronauts. It doesn't endanger anyone on the surface just yet, but it can potentially destroy satellites or get in the way of future rocket and spaceship launches. Dr. Christine Gates believes she may know the best way to clean this mess up. She proposes the Gossamer Orbit Lowering Device, which will be known as GOLD, and is essentially a large balloon. The balloons would be launched with all new satellites and other disposable spacecraft, and made out of an ultra-thin but super strong material. When the satellite or spacecraft is no longer required, the balloon will inflate to the size of a football field and gradually slow down the orbit of the object. The unwanted piece of space junk will then be drawn into the Earth's atmosphere, where it will burn up harmlessly.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.